We don't have a lot in front of us, just the work session on 1965 and a couple language reviews, right, Julia? Are we ready, Linda? Okay. Good morning, everybody. I'm Scott Landry. We are in the IFW committee. We have one work session this morning on LD 1965, an act to create higher standards for state-owned and state-managed land for deer management, a real simple bill. But before we get to that, I'd like to have everybody introduce themselves, please. Probably starting with Representative Lyford.
Thank you, Representative Landry. Yes, Peter Lyford, District 129, which is Clifton, Eddington, Holden, Northborough, and V.
Thank you. Representative Mason.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm Rick Mason. I represent District 56, and I am pleased to announce that we will be having the Gina Mason Memorial Moxie Day Parade this summer. First time in 2 years.
Well, we'll have to show up. Representative Hepler.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Allison Hepler, and I represent the towns of Arousic, Georgetown, Phippsburg, Woolwich, which is where I live, Dresden, and a small part of Richmond.
Good morning. Senator Dill, the Senate Chair.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Jim Dill. I represent Senate District number 5, which is Northern Penobscot County.
Senator Curry.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Senator Chip Curry, and I represent the 26 communities of rural, coastal, and rural coastal. I'm sorry, it's been a while since I've said it. The 26 communities of Waldo County, Senate District 11.
You'll have to come to more of our meetings. Representative Martin.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Thank you. Danny Martin, House 150, located in Northern Aroostook County.
Thank you. Representative Neto.
Good morning, everyone. Yes, I am here. I'm sorry, I can't do video, but
Okay.
Good morning, everyone. Kathy Neto, representing District 78, which covers Winslow and a small portion of Benton.
Thank you. And I think Representative Terrio is here. He was. Well, we'll catch him later. I'm Scott Landry. I represent the town of Farmington, New Sharon, District 113. I'm not missing anybody else, am I, Linda?
Did Rep Mason weigh in?
I don't know if you can hear me.
Yeah, I can barely hear you, Representative Terrio. He appears to have a bad connection. So we'll move on. Is Senator Jackson hiding in the wings somewhere?
No, I don't see him in the waiting room. He was sent a link, though.
Okay, he is the sponsor of this bill, so it would be nice to have him, but.
I can email his office and see if he's planning on attending.
Would you please?
Yes.
Okay, with that, why don't we, this bill has a lot of facets to it. It's not a simple bill. Maybe we could go to the department to get their feelings on it. Who's speaking for the department, Commissioner?
Good morning, Representative Landry, members of the committee, Judy Camuso, Commissioner for Game, Fish and Wildlife, and if possible, I would like to have Nate Webb brought in.
Yeah, we'll get to him when Linda gets off the phone with Senator Jackson, I guess. Representative Lyford.
Thank you, Representative Landry. Is this bill different than the one that Chris Johansson put in?
Okay, that's a yes, Commissioner.
Yeah, I mean, my, LD 404 passed and we've been working diligently on that since last session. And I think this bill is a little bit different in asking the department to work more closely with Department of Agriculture, Conservation and Forestry on deer management on both, well, ours and their state-owned lands.
Thank you.
Thank you. Linda?
Yeah, just an update on President Jackson. He is actually in VLA, doing a work session at this time. He will try, if he can, to bop in, but it may not happen.
Okay, this is a fairly complicated bill. It'd be nice to have him here. Nate, could you fill us in on what's going on, please?
Sure. Good morning, everyone. I'm Nate Webb, Wildlife Division Director at IFW. I'd be happy to give just a brief overview of our work with Department of Agriculture, Conservation, Forestry on management of deer wintering areas. I believe that Bill Patterson, who's the Deputy Director at Public Lands, is also in the waiting room as well, and I'm sure that he could share even more detail about their land base specifically. But just again, a brief overview. We do have, I think most importantly, a full-time wildlife biologist, an IFW wildlife biologist that works is seconded to the Bureau of Parks and Lands and works across their entire land base to help them conserve wildlife habitat and manage various wildlife issues on their land base. A big part of her work is working with BPL and with our regional wildlife staff on the management of deer wintering areas. In total, there's just over 69,000 acres of deer wintering areas on Bureau of Public Lands property. Those fall into a number of different categories. Some of those acres are in habitat management agreements between IFW and the Bureau of Parks and Lands, where we work jointly on developing and implementing management plans for those properties. There's about 18,000 in zoned PFWs in LERC jurisdiction. There's also about 15,000 acres in sort of other categories that we work very closely, again, using the staff biologists that we've assigned to BPL on management of deer wintering areas. We also regularly do surveys of deer wintering areas on the Bureau of Parks and Lands property. Our wildlife specialist that's assigned to BPL conducts both aerial and ground surveys focused exclusively on BPL's land base. This winter, during the last full survey season, she's actually out doing deer wintering area surveys this week. She surveyed just over 2,600 acres on the ground of deer wintering areas on public lands. And in addition to that, our regional wildlife staff include public lands when they're doing both aerial and ground surveys of the larger land base to assess deer use and the condition of deer wintering areas across the state. I mentioned that we work very closely with BPL on the identification and management of those wintering areas. We've done that for many, many, many years, and I think it's been very successful. There are deer wintering on a number of BPL parcels, and just sort of top of mind, we're aware of deer that winter in a relatively natural unfed situation on the Round Pond unit, Telos unit, the Scraggly Lake unit, along portions of the Allagash Wilderness Waterway, some public lots in the town of Allagash itself, and the Sabumic unit, and there's, I'm sure, others as well. More recently, starting in 2021, we've actually started working on a modeling effort with BPL that we're jointly funding to further assess the condition of deer wintering area habitat on the Scraggly unit, with the intent of potentially developing a habitat management agreement specifically to promote the management of deer wintering areas outside of the zoned PFWs on that unit. So there's quite a bit of work underway. It is a significant focus, certainly for our agency, and I know for public land as well. And at IFW, we view public lands as one of our most important partners in terms of managing deer wintering area habitat. And in our view, that's been quite successful. There certainly are a number of challenges with the situation regarding deer in northern and eastern and western Maine. Some of that is due to the condition of the habitat. but there's also, we believe, significant implications from feeding activity that occurs and has tended to, over the years, draw more and more deer into towns and backyards and that sort of thing. And predation is also a factor as well in that part of the state, which is at the northern limit of the range of deer in our state. So again, that's just a brief summary. I'm sure that Bill, who's on now, could provide more information on the work that they do specifically at public lands, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have as well.
Thank you, Nate. Representative Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Nate, the piece of legislation that we're discussing is a concept draft, if I recall. And I believe Senator Jackson introduced that as a result of a situation in the Van Buren or Hamlin area up north. Has Senator Jackson worked with you and or the department or with our analyst regarding this piece of legislation?
I have not had any conversations with Senator Jackson on this issue. I see that Julia has her hand up. I am aware of the situation in Hamlin. I know that Bill Patterson is very aware of it and has been on site at least a couple of times as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Lyford.
Thank you, Representative Landry. Nate, that Squaw Pan Allagash area is some 32,000 acres, my understanding is, with public lots. Most hunters and guides in that area say pretty much get used to no deer because there aren't any or aren't going to be any. Would you agree with that? Between the food and the predation, what do you think the plan would be to restore that area?
It's a great question, Representative Lyford. It's a complex issue, and I think my answer will be very complex. What we've seen over the past few decades is a fairly dramatic shift of deer from sort of the big woods, the North Main woods, the western portion of Aroostook County, for example, out into the more agricultural landscape. And so the majority of deer that we see during the winter, during restrictive snow conditions, are actually now wintering in sort of the agricultural matrix, smaller parcels of mostly private land. A lot of those deer are accessing supplemental feeding, which we believe may be part of the reason that shift has occurred. As you mentioned, and I alluded to earlier, certainly we believe that predation plays a role as well. We've actually, over the past number of years, conducted a fairly intensive radio telemetry project of deer at multiple study sites, and we have found, based on preliminary results, that deer in those sort of agricultural settings, even in far northern Maine, do tend to survive better, even given higher risk of vehicle collisions and other related issues than deer that are out sort of in the big woods and more traditional habitat. There's likely a variety of reasons for that. Again, predation is likely one of those. The work that we're now doing is part of LD 404 with direct acquisition of deer wintering habitat by our department and the management of those areas with deer as the highest priority is, I think, a potential partial solution to some of those challenges. Our agency does have quite a bit of flexibility in terms of how we manage habitat, where we aren't quite as limited operationally as some of the large industrial landowners are in that part of the state. We also have some federal and now some state funding that we can use even to do work that comes at a cost. We don't necessarily need to generate revenue from every management action that we take. So I don't think that effort is going to solve the issue. I do think, however, it has the potential in certain areas to hopefully start to rebuild the deer herd in portions of northern Maine where they're certainly at relatively low numbers right now. We have made quite a bit of progress in that effort. We have a number of parcels that are in various stages of discussions with the landowners or even in various stages of acquisition. So I'm hopeful over the next few years, we will start to see some progress in some of those locations.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Julia?
Thank you, Representative Landry. I just wanted to share that I just had a message from the Office of the President that he will join if possible, but that he supports the resolve put forth by David Trahan.
Okay, thank you very much. Before we go to David Trahan, good morning, Mr. Patterson. You have some insight into this, I believe.
Morning. Thank you for having me, and I appreciate the opportunity. I think Nate covered it very well as far as the working agreement we have. The aspect that I might add would pertain to our staff foresters and the wildlife biologists that we work closely with full-time from IFW. So we have a team of approximately 20 foresters that cover our 630,000 acres statewide. And they are in regular contact with Sarah Spencer, who's our staff wildlife biologist. And I just want to take note of the commitment that these foresters have to a multi-resource approach. I would say almost all of them are working for the Bureau of Parks and Lands because they believe in the values of a multi-use approach. And oftentimes we've got staff working for 25, 30 years for public lands. So our planning approach would involve assessing an area, working with wildlife biologists to research historic wildlife records, to do some additional on-the-ground survey, write and review plans. So we have a very detailed and process in place. Nate mentioned a particularly exciting initiative we have right now going on. We're investing quite a bit of staff time and some shared resources between the Bureau and IFW to apply LiDAR to develop a much more detailed understanding of the physical structure of the forest there, to help understand where the best habitat is and where it can be improved on with some cutting to provide feeding opportunities, what areas should be retained for cover and connectivity. So some really exciting cutting edge work there that I think will have applications to many other units around the state as we go forward. So the last thing I'll mention is the Hamlin lot that was mentioned attracted a lot of attention back in the fall. I think there was some initial misunderstanding on our harvest plans where some neighbors and public users of the lot understood that we were going to be cutting up to 85% of the area, which is understandably concerning. However, there's extensive areas of wetlands, riparian areas, zone buffers in terms of protection areas. There are no zone deer areas on the lot. And so getting out in the field with the neighbors and folks was very constructive. We were there twice, right at startup of the harvest operations, second time in January during the operations. And I was there just Wednesday of this week with the operations all wrapped up, taking a look at the outcome. And I'd really like to commend our forester that did the work there. I would be very pleased to show anybody the outcomes of that harvest. And we also did the regional biologist and our staff, IFW biologist, been doing some deer surveys there this winter. I think they reported finding a single buck track in that area. So not a lot of sign of activity there. Lots of moose tracks, snowshoe hare, some Canada lynx tracks. So very diverse and healthy forest. But I just want to commend our forester for a tremendous job on that unit. So I'll pause there and see if there are any questions and remain available as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Representative Lyford.
Thank you. Bill, do you do any reforestation such as replanting, not so much of softwood, but of hardwood nut trees?
Yeah, that's a great question. Our forestry relies on natural regeneration, and we have a pretty light touch to the land. I'm expecting in the example of this Hamlin harvest, it's an area that hadn't been cut in nearly 40 years. It had come out of the budworm era with a lot of damage. And so it was 40, 50, and 60-year-old mature fir and poplar species. And the result was very little light in the understory and little browse in the understory. And so in addition to recouping some of the economic value for the Bureau and the local economy through the harvest, it's quite clear that the outcome is going to be a great deal additional browse through a flush of poplar and fir, which will be valuable to a variety of species, including deer. The idea of planting is one that is on the radar, especially as the climate shifts and species like beech continue to decline. Possibility of getting some oak or other mass-bearing trees into some areas is a possibility, but nothing we have initiated as to this point in time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for Bill? Seeing none, Mr. Trahan, good morning.
Good morning, Representative. I apologize, Representative Landry and Senator Dill. We have two SAM bills going at the same time, and they're both in work session, and both sides are running from office to office trying to answer questions. So I do apologize for that. I had hoped that this bill would be more extensive and deal with some of the mitigation around loss of wildlife habitat, but I was unable to bring that to you. It just ran out of time. What was the original intent of this bill was to sort of re-examine what was going on public lands in light of what we did last year, what you did, which in my opinion was amazing, to go out and start buying deer wintering areas. I continued to hear from people, we have public lands, why aren't we doing more on public lands? So that's where this resolve idea came from, is to have the two departments come together, examine what's on public lands, and then come back with a more aggressive plan to better manage some of those deer yards we have on public lands. Not in all of the state, but I provided you a map. Inland Fisheries and Wildlife is trying to restore deer in the shaded areas of that map I gave you. It makes sense that we would look at those areas because loss of deer wintering areas in the rest of the state is not an issue right now. So that was where this came from, and that's why it's in front of you now.
Thank you. Any questions? Representative Hepler.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Is there language? We're talking about this complicated bill, and all I've seen is a concept draft. Is there any language anywhere?
Yes, I did provide that to the committee. It was, I had asked Senator Jackson if he'd be willing to turn this into a resolve, asking the two departments to get together, examine historical and current deer wintering activities on public lands, BPL lands. In the mapped region, I provided that map as well, and then come back next session on how they plan to more aggressively manage those areas to improve winter survival for deer. That was, I think, important because the Department, Inland Fisheries and Wildlife, now has, I believe, enough financial resources to aggressively manage deer on those lands, where in the past it might not have been as big, not a priority, but there weren't as many resources available. Changing feeding patterns around public lands. IFW now can do that through their statute. They have pretty good revenue in their deer management account. I just hope that they could work together and dovetail their efforts and to focus more on deer on those BPL lands. So that language was provided to you in an email. I sent it to the committee. I shared it with the department as well.
Thank you. Representative Martin.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. David, I wonder if Julia has access to that email or the resolve that you're talking about.
Yeah, sure.
If she does, I wonder if she can put it up on the screen. I don't recall seeing that, David.
I'm sorry.
Probably the only one that missed it, but
no. What I could do if you would like is when I'm done here, I'll go back to my office and resend it It should have come from my office manager, Becky Morrell. And I sent it also to the department. And it also had an attachment from the Senate President's office that talked about support for that. Sorry.
Julia, are you familiar with that? Or are you aware of what we're talking about?
I did see the email. I can't share my email on screen, but I could read it if you'd like. I did not see the attachment from President Jackson in that email. I did see the shaded map, and I'd also be happy to share the shaded map if that would be helpful.
I can also, I'll go forward you Senator Jackson's email right now.
Yeah, while he's gone, I have not seen it. I just checked all my emails from Becky Morrell and from David, and I haven't seen it either. So, as a matter of fact, I emailed Julia yesterday and said, can you send me a copy? And she said she only had the concept draft at that time. So, sorry, David, I don't think we've ever received it. I just looked from my emails from Becky and from you, and I don't have it either. So.
Huh. All right. Well, I apologize for that. I'm not sure how that happened, but you know, Becky, she was an ex-staffer for this committee. She's very thorough, and I'm going to have to take the blame because I know that she's very, very competent at what she does. Somehow that must have got lost in transit. I know that IFW has it because they responded to the email, but I'll try to forward it again.
Senator Curry?
Yes, I received it on Wednesday at 11:39 from Becky Morrell, and it did have the attachment from Lily Wilson in the Senate President's office saying his concurrence, or it was on the email train. But I just searched LD 1965, and I see the map and the concept, and I would be willing to make, when it's appropriate, make the motion to turn this into a resolve to do just that. Sounds like we want to discuss it a little bit and get it in front of people, though.
Yeah. Linda? You muted?
Yes, I actually just forwarded my copy to Julia. I don't know if she received it and if she can do something with it.
Can you share that, Julia?
Can't share my email on screen.
Okay.
If Linda would like to share it, but I would be happy to read it.
Okay.
Okay. Before you do, Representative Lyford, you had a question?
Oh, thank you, Representative. David, besides the IF&W and the public lands working together, don't you think it might be a good idea that we have a stakeholder group, you know, such as Sam and maybe a member of this committee as part of that?
Yeah, I have no problem with that. We've always had a really good relationship with the department. They do include us in a lot of the work that they do around deer in particular. So I have no problem with that. I think maybe just a letter would be appropriate. I don't think you really need to put it in statute. They have no problem working with us, and just letting them know what you want and having us come back next year, I think is the best way to go.
Just to follow up on that,
Sure.
maybe some other members of the legislature too. Yeah. Thank you.
Senator Dill?
I took my hand down. I'm good.
Oh, okay. Anybody else have any questions here? Do you have it, Julia? Or Linda?
I will attempt to screen share this. I have not done a lot of screen sharing, so hopefully it will work. What are we seeing here? That's the one, I think. Nope, that's not it. I'm sorry. I'm not very good at screen sharing.
Can you open that attachment?
I am. Well, the attachment is just the map.
Okay.
I don't know what you're seeing.
But we're seeing the map.
Oh, you are?
Yeah.
Okay, very good, because
Yeah.
that's not what's in front of me, but okay. And then behind that, if you wanted to, this is the letter here. Based on my discussions with the Senate presidency below, we hope the IFW committee would consider turning LD 1965 into a resolve. directing BPL and IFW to examine historical and active deer wintering areas on BPL lands in the areas identified in the attached map to determine whether there are active deer wintering areas on BPL lands and how the two agencies might work together to improve management in these deer wintering areas.
Very good. Thank you, Linda. Did everybody follow that? I can't see anybody, but
Yes.
yeah. Senator Curry.
If the committee's ready for a motion, I'd be willing to make the motion.
Any more discussion? Then let's go with it.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would move that we pass this as a resolve, directing BPL and IFW to identify and evaluate deer wintering habitat on public land and report back next session.
Is there a second?
I would second that, Mr. Chair.
Okay, second by Representative Martin. Commissioner Camuso?
Thank you, Representative. The department would just like some additional clarity on what exactly the committee would like us to do. We already do consult quite regularly with BPL. So what exact outcomes are you looking for? What, are you looking for the department? Obviously, each agency has different goals and objectives for their lands. So are you looking for the department to now fund some of the potential deer management on BPL? And I just, we're happy to work with BPL in any way, but I'm not clear based on this resolve what you want us to do that is different than what we're currently doing.
Mr. Trahan.
Sure, I can help with that. What led us to this bill was the Hamlin lot harvest. I think the locals, because of the sensitivity around the loss of deer wintering habitat, were very concerned with what they believed was a very aggressive cut on a public lot in an area we're trying to bring deer back. So based on what happened there, I think they've now learned how they might participate in the process sooner so it doesn't get to that confrontation. But I can tell you where the conflict is between BPL and Inland Fisheries and Wildlife Policy is BPL has a statutory component related to generating revenue through timber harvests. And anytime in any scenario, those two things can be in conflict at any given time when you're trying to preserve an older forest to protect both deer and dozens of other species. And then this push to raise money from stumpage on public lands. So I think that's the issue that needs to be addressed in the resolve is how do we, first of all, is there a problem in the conflict in policies? And what ideas do we have to mitigate those going forward so that maybe the locals are more informed, maybe they can participate earlier. And then I'm sorry, but this is never going to go away. When BPL does an aggressive harvest in these areas, they're going to run into local opposition. So you're going to have to more justify your harvest. And for example, when this Hamlin lot was first proposed, I asked Inland Fisheries and Wildlife for historical deer wintering data from that lot, and there was very little. I then went to the harvest plan, of which I've read hundreds as a former logger of almost 40 years. I've seen a lot of them, and there was very little reference to historical deer wintering habitat surveys. Nate Webb told me there wasn't a lot of information there. So I think going forward, more information, better information on historical deer wintering activity on those lands might help both departments better justify harvests. And to that point, I did read that report, and in it, it said, before the harvest, there was significant evidence of browsing by either moose or deer, and sign of deer on the lot. That harvest had already begun. To think that you could then do a survey after the harvest began is naive at best. I know I've done a lot of harvests, particularly in the wintertime. Deer from the surrounding region come to that dinner bell when they hear a chainsaw. So it was too late to go back and get that information. But I think that the resolve should at least direct them to come forward with some ideas to provide that better information, better justification for the harvest, what the goals are that include deer in the plan, not sort of just a general, one-line reference to it. So that was really what I had for a problem with that harvest plan originally. But I will say the agency, the administration were very receptive to making changes, positive changes. And I think inherited some things from previous administrations that they were dealing with and were receptive to us and our concerns as well as the locals. So it's really just about a course correction. And I think LD 404 sort of highlighted a need for a change in policy. So that's what I'm hoping they'll accomplish in this resolve.
Thank you. Nate?
Yes, thank you, Representative Landry. I just want to provide just a little clarification on the Hamlin lot. That area has been surveyed over the years as part of our broader regional effort, typically conducted by AIR with either Warden Service or Forest Service pilots to evaluate the location of wintering deer and map deer wintering areas. And that area has never been identified as an area that has ever housed wintering deer. When our staff visited that lot during the early stages of the harvest, their professional judgment, and this included 2 of our wildlife staff that are also licensed foresters, was that the condition of that lot prior to the harvest did not meet the cover criteria that we would look for it to meet the definition of a deer wintering area. So I just want to provide that clarification. We have surveyed that area. It has never been identified either historically or currently as an area where deer have wintered. And I think the surveys that we did this winter helped illustrate that. We do not view that lot as an area that's important for wintering deer. There's certainly browse pressure. It is used by moose year round, and I'm sure it's used by deer during other portions of the year when there aren't restrictive winter conditions. But I do think it's very important for our efforts on deer wintering area conservation to be laser focused on those areas that are truly important for deer during restrictive conditions. So I just wanted to share that perspective with the committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Nate. Commissioner?
Thank you, Representative. And I just wanted to add that as a state agency, I think a lot of the public views how we manage land differently, and they are much more sensitive to any harvest that happens on state land. And we regularly get a lot of public input and real strong opposition to any sort of harvest that we conduct on our properties, even when we have public meetings ahead of time and communication with the local community. A lot of people just expect that when the state owns it, that land is never going to be harvested. And so I am sensitive to that issue as well.
Thank you, Commissioner. And a question for you, David. Early on in this bill, I had heard discussion of monitoring and mitigation regarding solar farms and fencing around solar farms and locking deer in or out, or other species in or out of these solar farms. Was that to be part of this discussion?
I think given the discussions I've had, and I've had many of them with DEP, the governor's office, and Judy's been involved in some of them, they're very sensitive to the loss of this habitat as well. And I think, yes, there was broad discussion about trying to use this vehicle to bring the issue forward, but I just couldn't generate enough support from not the administration, but from the DEP, who has their hands full with all kinds of things right now. My biggest fear right now is that we're talking about bringing an energy corridor down from Aroostook County to bring renewable energies from Aroostook County. And then we have all the other development activities going on throughout the state, which looks to me like the Wild West. And every one of those solar sites are being fenced in. And that was the issue I wanted to bring forward was, well, I'm not against solar or energy development, but before we are 3/4 of the way down the road and those projects have been developed and fenced in, let's mitigate. Let's figure out, there are fences that allow wildlife to pass through that have been developed in other places. There's ways of moving some of these projects around so they can allow for travel corridors. Unfortunately, in a 4 or 5 week period, to get the DEP and all the other natural resource agencies, the administration and the legislature all to the table to fix that problem or mitigate it was just overwhelming. You won't hear me say this very often, but I think I got my butt whooped on this one. I just couldn't get my arms around it. And the industry itself feels like a freight train out of control. And there's so much money and interest in developing this type of energy that I think, I felt like I was standing in the middle of a 4-lane highway trying to get people to slow down. So we aren't giving up on that, Representative. I will meet with some folks and at least bring legislation in the beginning of next session to do something around this.
Very good. Thank you. Commissioner?
Thank you, Representative. And I just wanted to sort of tag team to David. And, the DEP and Army Corps of Engineers has a similar process, an in-loop feed program for wetland mitigation or wetland impacts on site level projects. So projects that impact or create 3 acres of impervious surface or more. And so we were thinking something, that would be a sort of a parallel program for wildlife impacts on larger scale projects, and it's all voluntary, where an entity could, if they could not avoid or minimize those wildlife impacts, pay into a fee that would be then administered by the in-loop fee program is administered by sort of the Nature Conservancy, so sort of a non-biased entity, if you will. And those funds are given out annually, and they are required by statute to be used in the county in which the impact occurred. But there's a lot of complexity that goes along with that. What fee is assessed, how, if you're developing solar panels, are you just assessing the fence? So there's a lot of complexities. It's a law that actually lies in DEP statute. So there's a lot of changes I would have to make. I think our feeling was that this is a really good idea, but it's complicated and it's going to require a lot of conversation, and we just couldn't accomplish it in a couple of weeks' time. But I think we are committed to continuing to work with DEP and ACF as well. So some of the farmland soils would be in a similar situation. So we are committed to continuing this conversation and would look forward to a further discussion next session.
So it's nothing you want to throw into a discussion on deer management?
No. Let's keep them separate.
Okay, thank you. Representative Hepler.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I guess my question maybe is to the commissioner, based on her earlier question after her earlier question about what's the direction. Do you feel like with this resolve, or that you have enough, that there's enough information? It just still seems vague. And I saw Julia taking notes. So maybe that's, maybe that's what's happening, is some kind of language that's a little more specific.
We are happy to continue working with ACF as we have. I'm not clear on what you want. We don't have the authority to sort of change, BPL's management, the statute behind their management objectives. We certainly can and do work with them very regularly. As Nate pointed out, we have a full-time staff person assigned to BPL. I think the department is doing great work as a result of LD 404, which you passed last year, and sort of moving full steam ahead, trying to acquire and manage additional areas for deer yards. We are happy to, I think, come together with BPL and perhaps, bring back some formal language or a review for you next year. I don't think a stakeholder group is needed. Or I guess if that is the case, then I would want some really clear, questions that we are to address, or outcomes that you're looking to see. And I feel like it would be an unnecessary task and that we could accomplish. We'd be much better served to just continue working on the many aspects of LD 404, which you passed last session.
A follow-up, if I can?
Yes.
Thank you.
Sure.
So, thank you. So that sounds to me like this was, that maybe a letter rather than a resolve might do the same thing.
Sure. I'm still not clear what the, what you want us to do differently, or what you want us to, what's going to change. I mean, we'll already work with BPL. We advise them. We have a staff person assigned to them. Our staff are doing deer yard surveys annually in different parts of the state, both aerially and on the ground. We share that information with BPL. I think from my experience, we have a very good relationship with BPL. And so, I'm hearing very clearly from the committee that they want more aggressive work from the department on deer wintering areas. And we are certainly focused. And I think, as David said, laser focused on that right now. So I hear that, we all hear that. And we will continue to convey that to BPL. So I guess if you have more clarity on what you want, I'd like to see that in writing.
I can do that.
Yeah, David?
Yeah, sure. Thank you for letting me respond to that. I wasn't going to bring this subject up because I was hoping we could do it in the future as part of a group to talk. Back when deer yards were zoned on public lands, there was a healthy deer population. And since some of these 35,000 acres that BPL now have deer wintering areas all zoned, but they have no deer in them. And that's a fact. And maybe it's because the deer disappeared, or maybe it's because of practice. I don't know what the reasoning is, but there needs to be a reshuffling of zoned and mapped deer yards on public lands. That needs to happen, because it makes no sense to continue to protect deer yards if there's no deer there. They're not using them. I was hoping that they would survey their lands, find where the active deer wintering areas were, and then make an adjustment to map and protect those. And if there's other areas that no longer need that protection, then let's have the tough discussion around eliminating that zoning and moving to a different type of management. But those discussions need to occur over a period of time with support of both agencies. If you want clearer language, and even in a letter, I don't care, because I don't find it hard to communicate with either department. So if it's just a letter you want, that's fine. But let us talk about some of those tough issues that people don't want to talk about that I think need to happen now.
Thank you. Representative Martin.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I think I just heard the commissioner say exactly what she needs. I'm trying to get a better grasp of exactly what we're attempting to do. Now, I understand what BPL's mission is, and that's forestry on their public lands. And I understand what IFW's mission in regards to habitat is. Maybe what I think what I'm hearing from David Trahan is for the department to take to consider habitat a higher priority. Is that what you're trying to attempt, David?
Yes, thank you, Representative.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So how we accomplish that? We always have this issue when we have a draft concept legislation. Unless the sponsor comes up with something, it's always difficult. Now, you just shared, David, that you had sent a copy of your proposed resolve to the department. Mm-hmm. But when we asked Nate if he had seen it, he indicated that he had not. It'd be great if we could see something in writing. I mean, it'd be great if we could move forward with, in some form or fashion, either with a letter or a resolve. I don't care which one. But I think this discussion indicates that at least some committee members are interested in having IFW, the department, take a more active role in protecting our habitat, especially northern Maine.
You nailed it.
Senator Dill?
Yeah, I guess I'd kind of agree with what Danny was saying, that it appears that maybe just a letter from us asking IFW, BPL, and SAM to sit down between now and next year and discuss this whole issue of land management, deer wintering yards, and everything that comes into it. And we know that they're working on, because of 404, they're working on some of this stuff, and report back to us on something, and maybe then at that point in time, there's a bill that can be reported out of IF&W. I think right now we seem to be spinning our wheels, but if the three groups get together and they come up with something, this always happens on some very important bills. We get at the end of the season and we really starting to rush things. So that would be my suggestion, that we do, instead of a resolve, ask the three entities to work together and come back with a plan. It doesn't have to be whatever it happens to be, but get the three groups together so that they can talk about what needs to be done, rather than us trying to micromanage them here in an hour.
Yes. Senator Curley.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. What I would really love in the report, whether it comes back from a letter or comes back from a resolve, what I would really care about is how answering the question how we might do this much better and have far more success. So what's possible? I'd like to hear what we've done thus far, because we might be, I get a sense that we're doing significant work, but I'd also like to hear what's possible that we're not currently able to do.
Thank you. Bill Patterson, do you want to weigh in on where we are with this discussion?
Sure, thanks. We'd be happy to do some additional communication. I think one thing maybe that I could add to the discussion, and it's probably assumed, but I think some regional tours, either for committee members, legislators, the public, stop by some of these lots. I think part of the difficulty here today is we're talking about concepts, and we're not out in the resource, and that's always the most constructive conversation. So I think building in, we could do a tour in Hamlin, we could do a tour in Rangeley, something down east to get folks out, and we'll get good and useful feedback, but I think we'll also increase the understanding of the public and some folks. And I did just want to point out a note I put in the chat that we have a planning process that has a hierarchical prioritization, and the top among that is always wildlife, based on science and data. Recreation is then second in the hierarchy, and then timber management is basically the remaining land. Not to say that if timber management is compatible with recreational wildlife, it doesn't happen in those zones, but I did just want to clarify that wildlife is among our various highest priorities in both planning and in practice. Thanks.
Thank you, Bill. That would be nice. It'd be good to tour some of these areas so we know just what's going on. Is there Representative Martin?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. If we could get back to the issue at hand, I kind of like Senator Dill's idea with setting the department and BPL and SAM to collaborate. And is there something that we could send in writing in lieu of a resolve?
Senator Curry, would you want to change your?
I'm happy to withdraw the motion if we wanted to withdraw the motion and then begin a pathway down on a letter.
Representative Martin, you were the second on that?
No, that would be great. Well, I believe, yes, I will draw the second.
So before us, we have a motion to draft a letter to the departments. Did you have something, Representative Martin?
Could we have Senator Dill repeat exactly what he had to offer?
Thanks, Dan. Representative Martin. What I suggested was that IF&W, BPL, and Sam sit down over the next few months and discuss this whole issue of harvesting deer yards on public land and how they interact, and to report back on, is there a plan that can be done? Do we need input from other organizations or whatever? But have them come back with some type of an approach that we as legislators can react to.
Thank you. Representative Lyford.
Thank you, Representative. Senator Dill, do you think we should add in to that group any committee members?
Once you add legislators to any type of a group, it changes the complex, actually, I think almost legally. It makes it something other than just a informal working group once we put legislators in there.
Yeah, and I believe, Representative, you also have to have the presiding officers, if you're going to make into a working group with legislators, presiding officers' permission. I just wondering if Senator Curry would be agreeable to the suggestion or the idea that Senator Dill had, and if he is, if he'd move it, I'd second it.
Senator Curry?
Sure, I'm happy to move that. So the letter, to do the letter based on what Senator Dill, Chairman Dill just said.
And Representative Martin seconded it, right?
Right.
Yes. Is there any more discussion? Well,
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
If I may, I just wondering if Julia got a grasp on that, and if she's okay with what we're talking about, because I suspect she'll be drafting the letter.
Yes. So this is to direct BPL, Sam, and the department to have a discussion, which will include a report back to the committee next year about how the two departments interact. Is there a plan? And what can be done? Some other questions that were involved that can be hashed out is how we might do this. And again, the next question was what can be done? So it will be examining the history and surveying of historical deer wintering areas and moving forward from there.
Representative Hepler.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I realize I'm having the same sunshine problem that I think Julia is.
Good problem.
I am still here, right? So there was a notice from someone in the chat. I don't know if anybody else saw it, about including other wildlife people like NRCM or Audubon, or I see Senator Dill shaking his head no. Just
only because Chad is not supposed to be used for that.
I know.
Yeah.
And they may be great suggestions, and if someone wants to add that, I don't have a problem, but that's not what we're supposed to be using the chat box for. So
Yeah, and Senator Dill, these groups can always contact the department, Sam, and other members of the working group, and for input.
right, and we haven't excluded the department from asking those people either, so for input. So
sounds good to me.
Yep. Is there anything else? You all set with that then, Julia? Okay, Linda, would you call the vote, please?
Yes. Let me see. I don't think we have. Yes, we do have Representative Lyford,
Yes.
Representative Mason,
Yes.
Representative Hepler,
Yes.
Senator Curry,
Yes.
Senator Dill,
yes.
Representative Landry.
Yes.
I don't believe Representative Terrio is with us. Representative Danny Martin,
Yes.
or Representative Ordway is not here. Representative Ali is not here. Representative Nedu.
Yes.
And I do not believe John Martin is here either. So 8 in favor.
8 in favor, no opposed. Senator Curry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Do we have, I don't think a letter is a report back, correct? Do we need to now deal with the LD 1965? Am I in error on that, or does that constitute our report back?
I am not sure. Senator Dill?
We asked in the letter for them to report back, and that's how we dispensed with LD 1965. So it's, I don't know exactly what you're asking. Are you saying, do we need to, ought not to pass on LD
That's
1965?
my question. I don't know, what is the status of 1965 at this point? I guess I don't know.
Yeah, I suppose we can do an ought not to pass on it. And that way it gets it off on our plate completely, because what we've handled is with the letter.
Okay.
I see Representative Martin shaking his head.
No, we should have a motion not to pass, correct?
Okay, good. Thank you. I'm glad you guys are there. Do we have a motion on 1965?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Representative Martin? Yeah. Any discussion? Linda, would you call the roll on 1965, please?
I will. Thank you. Again, Representative Liefert,
Yes.
Representative Mason,
Yes.
Representative Hepler,
Yes.
Senator Curry,
Yes.
Senator Dill,
Yes.
Representative Landry,
Yes.
Representative Danny Martin,
Yes.
Representative Nadeau.
Yes.
So, and again, so that's 8 in favor and with 4 absent. 5 absent.
5 absent. Yeah.
Yes.
Very good. Thank you all for being here to join in that conversation. And I believe we have just 2 language reviews left, Julia.
Yes, that is correct. And I also wanted to update the committee. I will send out this letter, but we did present both our bills to the Criminal Justice and Public Safety Committee, and they voted that it was low impact for both the Class C crimes in LD 1951 and similarly in LD 1663. And with that, I'll go ahead and start with LD 1813, which is the ATV bill. Okay, so this is a little different than the way that it was written, but it is substantively the same. So first, what you're seeing here, this is where the language was originally placed, but instead we just added a reference to it as an exception to operating unregistered ATVs. And the exception was placed here in the section on oversized ATVs, and states that registration is not required for an oversized ATV operated by a person on the land of another if written permission is received from the landowner or lessee of the land and the person is engaged solely in a business activity other than a business activity involving recreational use of the oversized ATV. So in summary, it is allowing oversized all-terrain vehicles to be operated without registration by business owners on private land for commercial purposes with written permission of the landowner. And it also includes the fiscal note, which is minor and can be absorbed within the existing budget resources.
Representative Hepler. You muted.
So thanks, Mr. Chair. So I know I sort of harped on this a little bit, but did we change the title of the bill?
Yes, I should have pointed that out. Thank you. The title was changed to an act related to oversized all-terrain vehicles.
Thank you. You flipped through there so quickly.
Sorry.
Okay.
Thank you. Senator Dill.
Did we resolve or did we try to resolve the issue of, you know, when we talked about going from, especially a farm vehicle, but could have been other businesses going from one area to another close by, but traveling on public property, like down the side of the road. I remember that I think Deputy Director Peabody told us that you could go and get a $4 sticker or something for an agricultural vehicle. And I guess that would allow them to do that. And I don't want to get down in the weeds here, but we did talk about other businesses, and it does say business here for business activity. Did we, or did the Department of Transportation, not the department, but did this go to the Transportation Committee for them to weigh in on?
It did not, because the change that was made here, it remains within Title 12. The change that you're talking about is, or not change, the existing law is in 23A, and that I don't want to speak for what was determined, but that it addresses agricultural use on public roadways.
Right, but unfortunately, we don't just say agricultural here, we say business.
Correct.
And I just don't want someone to get dinged just because, you know, they're a landscaper and it's, you know, a quarter of a mile apart and or something. That can they go down? And I see Deputy Commissioner Peabody has his hand up, so maybe he can answer that.
Yeah, there is a definition of agricultural use in Title 29A, and which would probably cover forestry type use, and I'm not saying it couldn't even include a loose term for agriculture, you know, growing plants of any sort. So I think it gets complicated. Question that you raised, Senator, on just, you know, trying to come up with a situation where anybody in a business activity could operate on the road. I don't think that this solves all of those issues, but I think the number of issues would be very limited.
Okay.
I think the agricultural language in the Title 29A covers most of the activities.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions on the ATV bill? Very good. And the next one?
Great. So the next is LD 1951. And I will bring up the language, but it actually hasn't changed at all since the last time it was reviewed. But since we're doing final language and fiscal review, I'll just bring it up so that everyone can see it one last time. So here we are. We have the first section that the funds will be put into the Landowner Relations Fund, the Civil Trespass section. If anyone wants me to slow down, just ask. The penalties that exist with that, the revocation of license for violations, permit required, how that permit is issued, fees and violations of that section, collar requirement changes, the limit on hunting dogs, and the collar requirement for training. Here we have the summary. And I'll go ahead and pull up the fiscal note, which we just received yesterday.
And this did go through criminal justice, right?
Yes, it went through criminal justice, and they voted low impact. So. Okay, so here is the fiscal note, and it did come with this explanation. So the bill establishes certain requirements and prohibitions regarding hunting, or this is just summarizing the bill, or training with dogs, and creates penalties for violations. The bill also establishes a process for enforcement of violations of civil trespass with a hunting dog. It creates a dog training and hunting permit fee of $12 to be credited to the Landowner Relations Fund. The Department of Inland Fisheries and Wildlife estimates that 1,500 permits will be issued, generating an additional other special revenues, which is here. Oop, not highlighting the first line, and beginning in fiscal year 2022-2023, and so therefore it has the corresponding allocation to allow expenditures of the funds.
Very good. Thank you. Any other questions for Julia regarding this? Seeing none, is there anything else you have for us, Julia?
I don't. Thank you, Representative Landry.
Very good. Thank you. Senator Dill.
Yeah, I just want to take a moment to thank the committee. This is theoretically our last meeting of the year, and I have chaired this for the last 4 years, and it's really been great. This is a great committee to work with. We may start out at two opposite ends, and I don't mean by bipartisan ends, that we would often start out in different places and usually came to unanimous votes on many issues, even though we started at extremes. And I do want to thank the committee. It's been a pleasure being able to chair this committee, and then I certainly want to thank the department too. Working with the department has been great. They have certainly been very responsive to any questions or any other things that we asked of them. So I want to thank everybody.
And I would thank you, Senator Dill, and Linda and Julia. Julia, I hope you learned some new things here this year with us. And I've got to say, it's just been great working with all of you folks. I think we've got the best committee there is. Is there anything else? Well, I guess
Linda's got her hand up.
Yes, if I could just take a moment and address the committee on a couple of Senate and House reports that are out for signature. We're doing virtual signatures back. And the Senate report on 2014 went out just yesterday, and I have received some responses back. But if you could please check your emails and look for that, and then reply to the email that I have sent your virtual signature on it. This way, when we're ready to report it out, it's good to go. And then the other one is House Report 1663. Most people have responded to that. But again, if you could, there are a few still outstanding. If you could check your emails, and if you need it sent again, I will be happy to. Just let me know. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Linda. Well, seeing that, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Second? All in favor? Opposed? Thank you all. It's been fun.